and relax. Guess what, folks? Got another tent to try. And as you can see, this is no backpacking option. This is what I call camping for the lazy. Joking aside, it's called an Aerogogo Giga, I think. Something very different. It's actually inflatable, no metal poles. It's been sent to me kindly by Aerogogo to have a look at and try. To be honest, not the sort of thing I would use, I would think, other than on campsites, but for the right kind of person, this is probably a very good solution. So it's about the size of a travel bag, and the weight's probably a bit academic, to be honest, let's face it. You're not going to be sticking this in a rucksack. And that's without the additional fly sheet for bad weather, which I think will probably add another ½ kilo. I'll check. So this is the polyester fly sheet part, which I thought would be about ½ kilo, 800 grams on that part. So it actually has a user guide and instructions sewn into the bag, although I think actually it's almost academic. One of the great selling points about this is just how easy it should be to use. It's got a built-in pump, so it should be press button convenient, which I'm looking forward to doing in the back garden because I'm sick of having to erect normal tents. So let's go take a look. Well, I've just spread it out. The first impression is the sheer size of it. If this is a 2-person, I'll be damned. That looks like 3 and a dog to me. And most of the weight actually is in that pump at the corner, which is built into the air tubes. So without the fly sheet, it seems to come with a cap on it initially, some sort of cap on the roof. Very basic, cheap pegs, and brown paracord guy lines. So reading the instructions, the first thing you've got to do is retighten and close the valves on the tubes. Again, they're just like the sort of thing I had on my inflatable kayak, to be honest. Exactly the same type. So that's all 3 done. 1 down here, 1 in that corner, 1 in that corner, and this seems to be sealed already with the pump built in. This is the pump compartment. Hopefully you can see this. Doing it one-handed is not that easy. Alright, here we go. So I think it takes about 3 minutes to go up, and then it should bleep to say when it's actually done. The pump itself is actually really quiet. It's either really quiet or really flat. Anyway, it's been going about 2 minutes. Oh, here we go, there's our bleep, that must be 3 minutes. At this point it's worth mentioning that I'm getting no wind out here, but what you'd really want to do is get some sort of pegging in immediately, probably before you even inflated it, because this whole thing would be away like a giant balloon. Apparently it's supposed to be waterproof to whatever the relevant standard is for outdoor electronics. And then this is the cap that goes on it. It's kind of aluminised on the inside, it's got a kind of foil coating. I've attached 3 of the corners, it's elasticated the cap, as you can see, plastic hook on it. There you go, actually it is easy. Yeah, so it comes with 4 short guy lines which seem to go on these corners to hold it down, and then 4 normal guy lines which you probably can't see in the grass there, I've laid them out, which will go onto these upper points. So my assumption is that this actually is waterproof even in this format, because it looks like coated polyester. It also has a midgie mesh inner door, which is good to see, and actually it looks like the equivalent on both sides. Geez, but the thing is like a mini marquee, it's huge. I've tied on the 4 lower guy lines, but they're so short you can't really use the adjusters. The peg distance to the actual tying point is about as much as a line can take. Would you call this summer mode, I guess? It does look, it's quite a heavy duty denier on it. It looks like it is waterproof, it's certainly coated. I'm just going to check the ground sheet. The ground sheet where it, the tray ground sheet where it meets the fly sheet does not appear to be taped. So I don't think this is really designed to stay out in the wet until you put the other fly on top of it. The catch-22 is I've tied the guy lines on already, so I don't know if I need to take off 4 of those before I can put the fly over. Above me here there's a couple of vents to let condensation out, so the cap works in the same way as a Hilleberg or Nature Hike Cloud Peak 2, I think. Similar kind of vented midgy top there. And then if I jump inside, I'll just cross my legs here. You have an inner door with a good dense bug mesh, and then an outer door with a kind of normal fly sheet material. And you also have exactly the same at the other side. Very strange colours. I think it's more for glamping than anything else. It reminds me of something you'd find in Dubai. So it's a rainbow door, and it features a couple of just toggling loops to tie it back there. The only thing about rainbow doors is they tend to fall in the dirt. I'm not very keen on them, to be honest. Absolutely no pockets. I always hate that in a tent. I always look for pockets. Nothing. The only thing it has above me here is the usual lantern hanging loop. Absolutely bog standard. That's fine. Yeah, but to have a second door and then not to put pockets in is a bit remiss. In terms of floor width, you'd easily get 3 people, 3 mats in here without any issue. But it's a wee bit short dimensionally, so you don't want to be over 6 feet unless it's just 1 or 2 of you sleeping diagonally. So with both doors open, it just reminds me of I don't know, something you'd see in the Sahara Desert. I think it's partly the colours, partly the style. Anyway, I've now put the Aerogogo mattress, which they also kindly supplied to me, in, and let's get that cranked up and get ourselves a nice comfy bed. This really is the height of laziness. If you want convenience for a festival or for car camping, this might be the perfect solution. Okay, that was a couple of painless minutes. And relax. The mat itself is a very generous double, 154 centimetres wide, and there's enough room there to put your baggage, all your rock festival gear. So even with this mattress in the bottom of it, I've still got wads of headroom, so that's not the issue. I think the main issue internally is just the length of it. I think it's still for shorter people. The actual ground sheet itself does have one seam and it's taped. It's just that looking at the edges here, it doesn't seem to be taped between this upper material and the tray ground sheet. But that's probably going to be cured when I put the fly sheet on. Okay folks, we have the fly sheet on now. It has a couple of vents in the roof at either side which don't have midgy mesh in them, and pretty poor prop vents, so they'll collapse in the first bit of wind. Same on the other side here. The weird thing is, although you've got a fly sheet that goes on it, at the end of the day you still don't have any vestibules, because I'll show you when this is closed, there just is no room between the ground sheet and the end of the zip. You don't have enough pegs either to peg out the door properly at the front middle, so you need at least another 2 pegs. You can see by the shape of this, it's basically following the inner tent rather than coming out, so there's no extra room for cooking or storing gear. It pretty much has to go inside with you. And one of the really nasty bits with this is you're paying your £265, you expect at least elastic and toggles, not one tyre on one end and a loop on the other, which you've then got to knot and undo the knots. Yeah, just not good enough, Aerogogo. So I don't really know whether I've got a prototype or whether this is a production model, but there are a few things missing. Could do with pockets, could do with tie backs that are properly done, could do with vestibules at either end, and could do with being longer head to foot. But if you're relatively short, relatively undemanding, looking for something glam, something for easy to pop up at a festival or car camping, it really is the lazy person's option, and it might work well for you. So this is the end of part 1. Part 2, we're expecting a yellow wind warning and rain warning. So I'm going to leave this up and we'll film it and try it and see what it's like in bad weather. Well, after 5 hours of relentless rain and wind, let's go inside and see if it's leaked. Yeah, it's dry. No leaks. It looks to be alright. Seems to be dry on the mattress. We'll check underneath on the floor. Well, I'm pleasantly surprised by that, and I take it back. That was 5 hours of fairly heavy rain, in fact very heavy rain, there's flooding outside, and pretty strong winds. Admittedly a bit more sheltered in the garden here, but up to 50 mph gusts forecast, probably no more than 25 around here, but it retained its structure and it stayed dry. So I'll give it its due, it's worked better than I expected. So it's definitely not for me as a backpacker and a gram counter. For anyone who wants the convenience of a pop-up tent with a built-in pump, one button press and you're virtually up, then maybe not a bad shout. You can't cook inside it, but you can store gear, and 2 of you can sleep in here as long as you're not over 6 feet. Could do with being a bit longer. Yeah, so there you go. Horses for courses, not for me, but for certain people I think it would work quite well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you out there for the next one. Cheers just now.